Respecting an avoidant's boundaries is key to making them feel less anxious. When they express the need for alone time, it's important to honor it without taking it personally. Avoidants may feel suffocated if they perceive someone as overly demanding of their time and attention. Creating a sense of autonomy within the relationship reassures them that their independence is respected. Instead of constantly checking in on them, giving them space to miss the partner naturally strengthens the bond. Overcoming their anxiety doesn't mean forcing them to engage in deep emotional discussions, but rather showing them through actions that the relationship is a safe space. The more they see that they are not being forced into uncomfortable emotional interactions, the more they may begin to lower their walls. This approach allows them to develop trust without feeling the pressure to change overnight. To support an avoidant partner in feeling less anxious, it's beneficial to recognize their triggers. Avoidants often experience stress in situations where they feel trapped or emotionally dependent. Being mindful of these triggers and addressing them in a non-threatening way reduces their discomfort. For instance, if they struggle with discussing feelings face-to-face, giving them an alternative way to express themselves, such as writing or casual conversation, can help. Avoidants tend to be more open when they don't feel like they are being put on the spot. Recognizing their limits and adjusting communication accordingly creates a more harmonious relationship dynamic. They may not always verbalize their emotions, but they often show affection through actions, acknowledging their way of expressing love rather than expecting them to conform to traditional emotional expressions fosters mutual understanding. Creating a sense of security in the relationship helps avoidants lower their anxiety. Since they have a deep-seated fear of being emotionally overwhelmed, demonstrating reliability and emotional consistency reassures them. Avoidants often have difficulty trusting that emotional closeness won't lead to control or dependency. Showing them through steady and predictable actions that they won't be abandoned or suffocated eases their fears. Instead of focusing on grand gestures of love, small acts of consistency, such as keeping promises and respecting their preferences, build trust. They respond best to partners who are confident and independent rather than overly needy. A secure and balanced dynamic where both partners maintain their individuality allows them to feel safe while gradually developing deeper emotional bonds. One of the most effective ways to help an avoidant become less anxious is to lead by example. Demonstrating healthy emotional regulation and security encourages them to feel more comfortable expressing themselves. Avoidants often mirror the emotional tone of their partner, so if they perceive stability and confidence, they are more likely to reciprocate. If they sense insecurity or emotional instability, they may retreat further. Encouraging emotional growth through personal example rather than direct confrontation allows them to engage at their own pace. Focusing on self-improvement and emotional self-sufficiency instead of solely fixing the avoidance behavior leads to a more balanced relationship. They are more inclined to lower their defenses when they feel that their partner is emotionally independent and not reliant on them for validation. Developing trust with an avoidant person takes time and patience. Since they are accustomed to emotional self-reliance, building a connection with them requires gradual efforts. They are more receptive to partners who provide steady support without overwhelming them. Instead of seeking constant reassurance, displaying quiet confidence in the relationship helps them feel less pressured. Avoidants tend to appreciate gestures that allow them to engage on their own terms rather than being forced into emotional discussions. Giving them the freedom to navigate their feelings without strict expectations fosters a healthier bond. Over time, they may begin to trust that emotional closeness does not mean a loss of independence. Consistency, patience, and respect for their boundaries are key factors in making an avoidant individual feel secure enough to embrace deeper emotional connections. Understanding how to navigate conflicts with an avoidant person is crucial for maintaining harmony in the relationship. Avoidants tend to shut down when faced with emotional intensity, so handling disagreements with patience and composure is essential. Instead of pushing for immediate resolution, giving them time to process the situation prevents them from feeling overwhelmed. Avoidants often need space to regulate their emotions before engaging in a discussion. Approaching them calmly and logically rather than with heightened emotions increases the chances of productive communication. They are more likely to respond when they don't feel pressured to react instantly. Instead of demanding emotional engagement, creating a non-threatening environment where they feel safe expressing themselves helps ease their anxiety. Using I statements instead of accusatory language prevents defensiveness. Focusing on solutions rather than dwelling on problems allows for a smoother resolution. Respecting their pace and allowing them to open up on their terms builds trust over time. Encouraging emotional vulnerability in an avoidant person requires patience and a gentle approach. Since they have learned to suppress emotions as a coping mechanism, forcing them to open up can backfire. Instead of demanding deep conversations, creating opportunities for gradual emotional expression works better. Engaging in activities that naturally promote bonding, such as shared hobbies or travel, helps them feel comfortable. Avoidants often express emotions through actions rather than words, so recognizing their subtle ways of showing affection strengthens the connection. Praising their efforts in emotional expression, no matter how small, reinforces positive behavior. Avoidants need to feel that their emotions will be accepted without judgment. Showing understanding and appreciation for their emotional progress makes them more willing to open up. Acknowledging their fears without making them feel weak encourages them to explore their emotions further. The more secure they feel, the easier it becomes for them to express vulnerability. A significant challenge in relationships with avoidant individuals is dealing with their tendency to withdraw. Avoidants retreat when they feel emotionally overwhelmed, which can be frustrating for their partners. Instead of chasing them for reassurance, allowing them the space to process their emotions is more effective. Avoidants are more likely to re-engage when they feel their boundaries are respected. It's essential to remain calm and patient rather than reacting with frustration or desperation. Giving them time to come back on their own prevents unnecessary conflict. During their withdrawal, focusing on self-care and personal growth helps maintain emotional balance. Avoidants often return when they sense stability rather than emotional chaos. Reacting with anger or excessive demands for closeness can push them further away. Accepting their need for space as a part of their nature rather than a personal rejection reduces unnecessary stress. Over time, they may begin to trust that emotional closeness does not mean a loss of independence. Developing emotional security in a relationship with an avoidant partner requires consistency. Since avoidants often have deep-seated fears of emotional dependency, demonstrating steady and reliable behavior reassures them. They respond better to partners who are emotionally stable rather than unpredictable. Avoidants need to see that emotional closeness does not mean constant demands for attention. Showing that affection and connection can exist without pressure helps them feel more secure. Instead of overwhelming them with dramatic expressions of love, small, consistent actions build trust over time. Being patient with their gradual emotional progress rather than expecting immediate change is essential. The key is to create an environment where they feel safe enough to explore deeper emotional connections at their own pace. Encouraging, rather than forcing, emotional engagement fosters a healthier dynamic. They are more likely to embrace vulnerability when they feel that their emotions will be respected rather than controlled. Balancing independence and intimacy is crucial in relationships with avoidant individuals. Avoidants thrive in relationships where they feel they can maintain their autonomy. They often fear losing their sense of self in emotional connections. Instead of demanding constant closeness, allowing for healthy independence strengthens the relationship. Partners who have their own hobbies, interests, and social circles create a more attractive dynamic for avoidance. Demonstrating emotional self-sufficiency reassures them that they will not be smothered. Avoidants tend to be drawn to partners who exude confidence and personal fulfillment. The more secure they feel in their independence, the more they may open up emotionally. Encouraging a lifestyle where both partners maintain their individuality while nurturing the connection creates a strong foundation. Instead of seeing independence as a threat, viewing it as a way to strengthen emotional security benefits both partners. A well-balanced relationship dynamic allows avoidants to feel safe while deepening their emotional bonds. Addressing misunderstandings with an avoidant person requires clear and direct communication. Avoidants often struggle with emotional nuance, so being straightforward prevents confusion. Instead of using passive-aggressive behavior or expecting them to read between the lines, stating feelings clearly leads to better understanding. Avoidants appreciate communication that is logical rather than emotionally overwhelming. Keeping discussions focused on solutions rather than emotional reactions prevents unnecessary tension. Instead of assuming their withdrawal means a lack of care, recognizing it as a coping mechanism reduces frustration. Asking open-ended questions rather than demanding immediate emotional responses gives them room to express themselves comfortably. Acknowledging their perspective without dismissing their feelings fosters mutual respect. Avoidants tend to respond better when they feel they are being heard rather than pressured. Remaining calm and composed during conversations encourages them to engage more openly. The more they see communication as safe, the less likely they are to retreat emotionally. Creating a positive emotional association with intimacy helps avoidants feel less anxious in relationships. Since avoidants often link emotional closeness with control or obligation, redefining intimacy as something enjoyable rather than stressful is beneficial. Engaging in lighthearted, pressure-free interactions makes emotional connection feel more natural. Instead of forcing deep discussions, incorporating fun and playfulness strengthens the bond. Avoidants tend to feel safer when intimacy develops organically rather than through forced conversations. Expressing affection through small, everyday actions rather than grand emotional declarations makes them more receptive. Demonstrating that emotional closeness can be comforting rather than suffocating reassures them. Over time, they may begin to see intimacy as a positive experience rather than a threat to their autonomy. Avoidants respond best to environments where emotional expression is encouraged without being demanded. The more relaxed they feel, the easier it becomes for them to embrace emotional connection. Handling an avoidant partner's reluctance to express emotions requires empathy and patience. Many avoidants were conditioned to believe that emotions are a sign of weakness. Creating a safe space where they feel comfortable expressing themselves without judgment is key. Instead of criticizing their emotional detachment, recognizing their efforts in small ways builds trust. Encouraging self-awareness through gentle conversations rather than direct confrontation makes emotional growth more manageable. Avoidants are more likely to engage emotionally when they feel accepted as they are. Demonstrating emotional intelligence and understanding rather than frustration fosters a sense of security. Acknowledging their emotions even when they struggle to express them validates their experiences. Encouraging self-reflection without making them feel pressured helps them understand their emotional patterns. The more they see that emotions can be navigated without fear of judgment, the more they may embrace emotional openness. Fostering long-term emotional growth in an avoidant partner requires a foundation of trust and patience. Avoidants take time to unlearn deep-seated patterns of emotional avoidance. Instead of expecting immediate transformation, Supporting their gradual progress leads to a more stable relationship. Encouraging emotional expression through small, everyday moments rather than dramatic discussions makes growth feel more natural. Creating an environment where vulnerability is met with understanding rather than pressure promotes trust. Avoidants often respond better when they feel they have control over their emotional journey. Instead of trying to change them, showing consistent support and appreciation for their progress strengthens the bond. Demonstrating that emotional closeness does not equate to loss of independence reassures them. With time, they may begin to associate emotional intimacy with security rather than fear. Encouraging their emotional evolution without forcing it fosters a healthier and more fulfilling connection. Helping an avoidant individual build emotional resilience requires patience and understanding. Avoidants often struggle with processing emotions because they have learned to suppress them as a defense mechanism. Encouraging them to acknowledge their feelings without overwhelming them is key to fostering emotional resilience. Instead of forcing deep emotional discussions, creating an environment where emotions are acknowledged naturally can help. Engaging in reflective conversations rather than confrontational ones makes emotional processing easier for them. Providing reassurance without excessive emotional pressure allows them to explore feelings at their own pace. Avoidants respond better to emotional cues that feel safe rather than demanding. Encouraging mindfulness practices such as journaling or meditation can help them process emotions without stress. Offering gentle affirmations instead of direct emotional requests builds their confidence in handling feelings. The more they feel supported rather than judged, the more they develop resilience in emotional situations. Over time, they may become more comfortable facing emotions instead of avoiding them. Developing trust with an avoidant person requires consistent actions rather than words alone. Avoidants often struggle to trust because they fear emotional dependence or entrapment. Demonstrating reliability through small, consistent gestures reassures them more than verbal promises. They are more likely to open up when they feel a sense of security in the relationship. Instead of making dramatic declarations of love or commitment, showing up consistently builds their trust. Avoidants observe patterns of behavior rather than relying on spoken reassurances. Maintaining steady communication without overwhelming them helps develop a foundation of trust. Showing patience rather than frustration when they pull away makes them feel safe. Avoidants respond better when they see that trust is being built gradually rather than forced. Recognizing and respecting their personal boundaries reinforces their sense of security. The more they trust the relationship, the more they may become willing to embrace emotional closeness. Managing expectations in a relationship with an avoidant person is essential for long-term harmony. Avoidants tend to develop relationships at a slower pace than more emotionally expressive individuals. Accepting their pace rather than trying to rush emotional intimacy creates a healthier dynamic. Expecting them to change overnight can lead to frustration for both partners. Recognizing that their emotional detachment is not a reflection of their feelings can prevent misunderstandings. Avoidants often express love in subtle ways rather than through grand emotional gestures. Understanding and appreciating their unique ways of showing affection reduces unnecessary disappointment. Instead of expecting them to conform to traditional emotional expressions, acknowledging their strengths and other aspects of the relationship helps. Avoidants may not always verbalize their emotions, but they often demonstrate care through actions. Learning to recognize these small gestures as signs of affection fosters a more satisfying connection. Adjusting expectations to align with their natural emotional rhythm promotes long-term stability. Encouraging healthy communication habits with an avoidant person requires a thoughtful approach. Avoidants tend to struggle with direct emotional expression, but they can improve communication with the right support. Creating a judgment-free environment where they feel safe expressing themselves encourages openness. Instead of confronting them with intense emotional demands, guiding conversations in a calm and logical manner works better. Giving them time to process emotions before responding prevents defensive reactions. Asking open-ended questions rather than demanding instant emotional engagement makes conversations feel less pressured. Avoidants are more likely to communicate when they feel they are not being interrogated. Keeping discussions solution-focused rather than emotionally charged reduces their fear of conflict. Respecting their communication style while gently encouraging self-expression strengthens the relationship. Encouraging self-reflection through casual conversations rather than deep emotional discussions makes it easier for them to engage. Over time, they may become more comfortable with expressing emotions in their own way. Supporting an avoidant partner in moments of emotional distress requires a calm and reassuring presence. Avoidants often struggle to seek comfort from others as they have learned to rely on themselves emotionally. Instead of pressuring them to talk about their feelings, offering quiet support reassures them. Simple actions like being present, providing a distraction, or engaging in shared activities can be more effective than emotional conversations. Recognizing when they need space rather than forcing emotional discussions prevents additional stress. Letting them know they are supported without overwhelming them builds a sense of security. Avoidants appreciate partners who respect their emotional process rather than trying to control it. Encouraging them to engage in healthy coping mechanisms such as physical activity or hobbies helps them manage stress. Demonstrating patience rather than reacting emotionally to their withdrawal fosters a stronger connection. Showing them that seeking support is safe rather than burdensome promotes emotional growth. With time, they may become more open to receiving comfort from their partner. Helping an avoidant person feel valued in a relationship requires understanding their love language. Avoidants may not always express love through verbal affirmation or physical affection, but they often show care in practical ways. Recognizing their subtle ways of expressing affection prevents unnecessary feelings of neglect. Instead of expecting traditional romantic gestures, appreciating their efforts in everyday actions strengthens the bond. Avoidants often show love through reliability, acts of service, or thoughtful gestures rather than emotional words, acknowledging these efforts instead of dismissing them helps them feel valued. Expressing appreciation for their unique ways of demonstrating affection reinforces their sense of connection. Avoidants respond best when they feel their contributions to the relationship are recognized without being forced to change. Validating their expressions of care rather than comparing them to traditional standards fosters a healthier dynamic. The more they feel accepted for who they are, the more they may engage emotionally. Encouraging self-expression while respecting their natural tendencies creates a more fulfilling relationship. Avoidants benefit from a relationship dynamic that promotes mutual independence. Since they often fear emotional dependence, a partnership where both individuals maintain their personal identities feels safer to them. Engaging in separate hobbies and interests while still nurturing the connection creates a healthy balance. Avoidants appreciate partners who are self-sufficient rather than overly dependent on the relationship for happiness. Demonstrating a fulfilling personal life reassures them that the relationship is based on choice rather than necessity. Encouraging personal growth on both sides strengthens the bond without creating pressure. Avoidants tend to feel more comfortable in relationships where emotional connection happens naturally rather than being forced. Establishing a dynamic where both partners maintain their independence while sharing meaningful experiences fosters long-term stability. Showing that love can exist without emotional suffocation makes them more willing to engage. The healthier the balance between autonomy and closeness, the stronger the relationship becomes. Recognizing the impact of past experiences on an avoidance behavior helps foster compassion and patience. Many avoidants develop their attachment style due to early emotional neglect or inconsistent caregiving. Understanding that their avoidance is a learned response rather than a personal rejection prevents unnecessary resentment. Instead of blaming them for emotional distance, acknowledging their past struggles promotes and recognizing their fears and insecurities without making them feel weak encourages emotional growth. Avoidants often need time to unlearn deep-seated beliefs about relationships and intimacy. Demonstrating unwavering support while respecting their boundaries reassures them. They are more likely to engage emotionally when they feel understood rather than criticized. Encouraging therapy or self-reflection in a non-forceful way can also help them navigate emotional challenges. Providing a secure environment where they feel accepted fosters gradual emotional openness. The more they trust that they won't be judged for their past, the more they may embrace emotional connection. Creating a relationship dynamic that makes an avoidant person feel emotionally safe requires patience and consistency. Avoidants often struggle with trust, fearing that emotional closeness will lead to control or loss of independence. Providing them with a stable and predictable environment helps alleviate these fears. Instead of overwhelming them with constant emotional discussions, showing care through consistent actions reassures them. Avoidants feel more comfortable in relationships where they are given the freedom to engage at their own pace. Demonstrating emotional stability rather than reacting impulsively to their distance builds trust over time. Avoidants need to see that emotional connection does not have to come with excessive expectations or pressure. They respond better to relationships where they feel respected for who they are rather than being pushed to change. Accepting their emotional rhythm while gradually encouraging deeper connection fosters a stronger bond. The more they feel safe in the relationship, the more they may naturally lower their defenses.